My brother made my life a living nightmare. Then he crossed an unimaginable line. He got my wife pregnant. And now, he's asking for my help, even after our parents disowned him and left me their $2 million inheritance. David, my younger brother, wasn't just a thorn in my side. He was the favored child, the golden boy. Jealousy didn't fuel his hatred toward me. There was no need. Our mother doted on him endlessly, treating him like royalty. She cooked his meals, did his laundry, and even insisted I help him with schoolwork. He's family, she'd say, as if that justified the double standard. I was independent, capable of managing on my own, but that didn't mean I didn't notice. I always met his needs, never expecting anything in return. But when I needed help, David was nowhere to be found. I was a quiet, bookish kid who preferred solitude. David? Loud, rough, and full of swagger, just like Dad. My straightforward nature often earned my mother's disapproval. She didn't appreciate honesty, especially when it came without sugarcoating. It made David the apple of her eye, and I was fine with that, until the bullying began. It started innocently enough, teasing me about my height and my glasses. But David wasn't content with mere words. He'd sneak into my room, pry into my diary, and then tattle to Mom about what I'd written. When I yelled at him for invading my privacy, our parents would dismiss it with a laugh. Boys will be boys, they'd say, as if that excused his behavior. But David didn't stop there. He'd sneak little stones into my cereal or nearly break my glasses. Once, he even tried to sabotage my food. When I told Mom, her response: "This is just how brothers bond." Bond? Was Tormentor idea of bonding? He always knew how to hit where it hurt. He joined the bullies at school, calling me ugly loser and hairy monkey, urging them to hit me. One day, during a petty argument I can't even recall, he snarled at me to end my own life. That cut deep, deeper than anything else, because I was already grappling with my mental health. Hearing those words from my own brother left a wound I didn't think could heal. Things got darker in high school. David's pranks escalated from cruel to downright dangerous. Once, he tried to set my hair on fire. When I turned to Mom, desperate for support, she dismissed it. "He's just playing," she said, as if arson was a game. But for the first time, Dad stepped in. He made it clear that David had crossed the line, even threatening to call the police. For once, my brother seemed genuinely shocked. Consequences were a foreign concept to him. Later, Dad came to my room, something he rarely did. I braced myself, expecting criticism, but instead, he spoke with an honesty that surprised me. He admitted he'd hoped David would mature, but now he saw the truth. My brother was turning into a bully. For the first time, I felt seen. I broke down, pouring out years of pent-up frustration. I told him everything, every insult, every prank, every punch. The next day, Dad took action, warning the school bullies to back off. That evening, he signed me up for MMA classes. "You need to stand up for yourself," he said. At first, I felt ridiculous, a scrawny, nerdy kid in a world of fighters. But I committed, balancing workouts with my studies, and slowly, I transformed. One day, David crossed the line again. He stole the pocket money I'd been saving for weeks. I caught him just as he was about to leave with his friends. Furious, I demanded my money back. He smirked, taunting me, "What are you gonna do? Run to Daddy?" I don't know what came over me, but I punched him square in the face. The shock in his eyes was priceless. I grabbed my money, threw him to the ground, and walked away as he cried like a child. Mom came rushing out, horrified. She scolded me, insisting I should set a better example for my younger brother. David, of course, soaked it all up, enjoying her attention. But Dad? He wasn't having it. He made David explain himself and made it clear he was lucky I only hit him. Anyone else might have called the police. David threw a tantrum, screaming that he hated me before storming off to his room. That punch marked a turning point. David stopped his physical bullying, but his bitterness only grew. He ignored me, muttered insults under his breath, and refused to speak to me directly. I begged Mom to intervene, but she always refused, brushing it off as sibling rivalry. When I finally left for university, it felt like escaping a prison. My dad threw me a party, and even Mom seemed proud. David, though, was distant, barely acknowledging me. University was a breath of fresh air. I made friends, excelled in my classes, and met Karen, the woman I thought was my soulmate. We married after graduation, ready to start a new life together. For years, I thought I'd left the past behind me. But the past has a way of catching up. A devastating revelation unraveled the fragile threads of my family. With every word, the weight of Karen's confessions crashed into me like relentless waves against a weakening shore. She detailed her betrayal with David, my own brother. The realization that my son, my pride, and my anchor might not even be mine pierced deeper than I thought imaginable. Each revelation pulled me further into a whirlpool of disbelief and sorrow. I had to know everything. Why had she kept such a secret? How could she betray me this profoundly? Her reaction was chilling, a cold indifference that seemed detached from the carnage she'd unleashed. Her vague, dismissive answers only fueled my desperation for clarity. Finally, after persistent questions, she admitted the unthinkable. The name she uttered, David, hung heavy in the air, cutting through any lingering hope I had. My mind flashed back to when I introduced Karen to my family. Back then, her eagerness to connect seemed innocent. She spent time with my mother, integrated into family outings, and even helped bridge the strain gap between David and me, or so I thought. Looking back, the pieces clicked into place. Karen's sudden decision to leave early that New Year's, her cheerful demeanor upon her return to college, the surprise pregnancy, it all fit her narrative. She stayed with me because, in her words, I was the dependable brother. Dependable. Reliable. A safe option. The realization churned my stomach. And yet, the betrayal wasn't confined to the past. The affair never truly ended. Karen revealed that she and David maintained their secret connection, sneaking off to hotels under the guise of business trips. She admitted that she chose me not out of love, but because of convenience, because I was a better father figure. Her words blurred into noise as my mind raced, grappling with the enormity of her deceit. Her pleas for forgiveness fell flat. She begged me to consider our son, claiming he needed both parents. But her words rang hollow. How could I fight for a marriage so irreparably broken? Trust, once shattered, cannot simply be mended. I packed my belongings in silence, resisting her manipulative attempts to tether me with guilt. As she sobbed on the doorstep, I walked away, knowing I needed answers from the one person who had been complicit in this betrayal. When I confronted my parents, the truth exploded into the room like a shattering glass. Their faces mirrored the disbelief and devastation I felt. Determined to expose David, I called him in their presence, keeping my tone steady as I laid out the facts. At first, David denied it all, his voice dripping with feigned innocence. But as I pressed further, recounting Karen's confession, his defenses crumbled. He shifted blame onto her, calling her characterless, and had the audacity to boast about being the better-looking brother. His arrogance was infuriating, but it served my purpose. He had revealed his guilt. The room fell silent as my parents absorbed the weight of his betrayal. My father, a man of few but impactful words, finally broke his silence. "David," he began, his voice firm yet heavy with disappointment. "What you've done isn't just a betrayal of your brother. It's a betrayal of his family." The gravity of his words was unmistakable. Each sentence cut through David's flimsy excuses, leaving no room for evasion. My father's voice, laden with anger and sadness, held David accountable for the havoc he'd wrought, not just on me but on the fragile bonds that once held our family together. David tried to sputter out justifications, but the damage was done. My father's disappointment was palpable, my mother's protective veneer shattered. For the first time, David's golden child image crumbled, exposing the cracks beneath. And in that moment, amidst the turmoil, I felt an odd sense of vindication. The truth had emerged, unvarnished and undeniable. And though it couldn't undo the hurt, it was a start. A painful, bittersweet start. The words hit like a hammer. From today, you're cut off. No more college fund, no more lifestyle support. You'll have to figure it out on your own. My father's voice was calm but laced with a finality that left no room for negotiation. His disappointment in David was palpable, and every word was a strike against my brother's misplaced arrogance. "Do you think sleeping with married women makes you more of a man?" he asked sharply, his tone cutting through the silence like a blade. I sat there, composed, even though my emotions threatened to boil over. I had wanted to yell, to rage, to make David feel every ounce of betrayal he'd caused. But watching my father dismantle him with measured words was vindication enough. David, of course, protested. He grasped at excuses, throwing out half-hearted justifications. But my father wasn't having any of it. He ended the call abruptly, silencing David's weak attempts to explain away his actions. Then came my mother. She approached me cautiously, her eyes filled with regret. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she hugged me. There was a depth to that embrace, a silent apology for not believing me, a tacit acknowledgement of the pain I'd endured. My younger self could never have imagined this moment, this vindication, this fragile sense of support amid the chaos. In the days that followed, my father stepped up in ways I hadn't anticipated. He helped me secure a skilled lawyer to handle my divorce from Karen. It wasn't an easy battle. Karen, backed by her lawyer, fought dirty, demanding alimony since I earned more. But her affair worked in my favor. Then came the paternity test, and the results hit like a second betrayal. David was the father of the child. The revelation was soul-crushing, even worse than discovering Karen's infidelity. The son I had loved and nurtured wasn't mine. Karen begged me to stay in his life. "He's innocent in all this," she pleaded, her voice desperate. But I couldn't. Every time I looked at him, I saw David, and the anger, the hurt, was too much to bear. The divorce, once finalized, brought a strange sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I was on my own. I moved into a bachelor pad, a surreal experience after marrying so young. Independence was a foreign yet thrilling concept, and I adapted quickly, embracing the solitude. 2 weeks ago, my father called with another shocker. He was rewriting his will. "David won't see a dime," he said firmly. My father, ever the stubborn man, had made up his mind. "He'll get $1. That's it. The rest, nearly $2 million, would come to me, with a single stipulation: if my mother outlived him, she would continue to live in their house." I was stunned but didn't argue. I understood his reasoning. Somehow, though, David found out. And yesterday, he called me desperate. His voice cracked as he explained his situation. Karen, now fully aware of the paternity, was demanding child support. He was broke, struggling to find work, and drowning under the weight of his choices. "I need your help," he pleaded, the arrogance stripped away, replaced with raw vulnerability. I laughed bitterly. "Help? After everything you've done? You should have thought about the consequences before sleeping with my wife." David tried to shift the blame, but I wasn't having it. "She's your responsibility now," I said coldly. "You made your choices. Live with them." He raised his voice, but I cut him off. "You're no longer the golden child. You're the black sheep, the one who destroyed his own brother's family." Then, he broke. David started to cry. The sound, raw and unfamiliar, stirred something in me. I hadn't heard him cry since we were kids. And as much as I hated him, it hurt to hear him like that. Still, I stood firm. "We're done," I said. "Don't call me again." After hanging up, the conversation replayed in my mind. A part of me wondered if I had been too harsh. But could someone like David ever truly change?